For most humans, what we might define as intelligence is, I don't know, our ability to do mathematics, our ability to program our computers, our ability to um, figure out what all of those settings are on our smartphone, those kind of things. You might begin to wonder, as our smartphones get smarter, what does that do to our relative level of intelligence? But anyway, so this is a very human-centered definition of intelligence, the ability to sort of, do two things basically. One is to conceptualize, which is fundamentally reducing our direct experience to concepts. And concepts are all made of words, right? Words strung together that are an attempt to describe what we're actually experiencing or what we may imagine or think about. So when we think, there's this very linear progression of words in our head, sometimes in a very sensible kind of way, and often in a somewhat nonsensical kind of way, functional or not so functional. So this is sort of reducing the immensity of our actual experience to a concept about it. It's one sort of fundamental aspect of human, what we call intelligence. The other one that's unique almost exclusively to humans is this ability to self-reflect. By self-reflect, it's almost as if we can step out from ourselves and then look back at ourselves as ways that, we evaluate ourselves, judge ourselves, right? So these two things, reduction to concepts and the ability to self-reflect, were both enormously important in our human evolution, from some small animal that would get underfoot inadvertently of dinosaurs to our evolution to the alpha species on the planet, right? So all our technology and science and understanding of physics in the natural world in a scientific kind of way are all built on these fundamental capacities of humans that are relatively unique on this planet anyway, of the ability to conceptualize and the ability to self-reflect. And these clearly weren't always present. They were something that developed over some probably hundreds of generations for that capacity to be realized by all humans. There's probably a time initially when, some humans just began to, develop a more complex way of expressing themselves, both verbally, and then began writing in symbols in a way that was unique. And it probably took quite some time for that to, the importance of that and the capacity of that to catch on. And the same is true with this capacity that we have of self-reflection. Very few animals have that ability. There was an experiment done some years ago where they took a variety of monkeys and chimpanzees and higher apes, and they did this experiment where in a room with a mirror in the room, they sort of, when the animal wasn't paying attention, they dabbed a colored spot on their forehead, and eventually the animal would gaze in the mirror, and most of the animals just disregarded this spot on their forehead that was quite unusual. I mean, there were a few. I mean, chimpanzees and gorilla, orangutan, just a few that sort of recognized, like, wait a minute, that's me, and that shouldn't be there, and they went to wipe off the spot on their forehead. So, I mean, very rudimentary form of the ability to self-reflect, to recognize that that appearance in the mirror is actually me as a separate entity, apparently, from what I see, what I experience outside of myself. So that's the sort of very rudimentary ability of self-reflection, but very rare in the world other than with us humans. So these capacities are been very important in our the development of our whole scientific um, apparatus that we've built, the technological skills and accomplishments, especially over the last hmm, 700 or 800 years. But it's also the things that get us most into trouble, the two things that cause us the most suffering. I'm not talking about physical pain. I'm talking about psychological suffering. So these two things, the one is our capacity to conceptualize, well, just about everything, causes us to suffer because um, by reducing the richness of life to concepts, um, over time, the concepts become so uh, significant in our way of viewing the world that we tend to value the concepts more than the reality, and consequently feel separated from other people, isolated from the world, and in many ways isolated from our own self. The inability to feel deeply and allow the feelings, whatever feelings we may be experiencing about our in the world, without routing it through concepts that we may hold about it. So that's one way we suffer psychologically. The other way is a result of this capacity for self-reflection. Either we do it too much or too little. If we do it too little, then we're just sort of blindly walking through life and kicking over flower pots and not even noticing that we're doing it. That's like underutilizing self-reflection. But often the problem is overusing it, especially when we begin to look inward at our psychology in a more sustained kind of way. So we can, by overusing it, I mean, um, self-judgment, regret, remorse, guilt, shame, envy, jealousy, greed. And then, of course, the fear of our impending death. All of those things are ways that we can suffer as a result of stepping out and looking back at ourselves, at our situation, mental processes. So the things that have been the most significant in our evolution have also been the ones that currently cause us the most psychological suffering. But in the meantime, as a species, we've been headlong on this rush towards more and more technology, a rush towards sort of giving away our human autonomy and to the digital world. And of course, we're talking about artificial intelligence a lot lately, and this is the direction that science and technology seems to be rushing towards headlong, is to this fascination with a transhuman state where we've expanded our intelligence beyond the human mind, right? For for scientists, it's fascinating, right? What what's going to happen next? Golly, right? What do they think of next? And we line up to buy the next gadget that they've created. And there's actually nothing wrong with the gadget itself. I mean, there is a certain convenience there, um, but it's the presumption that that will somehow lead to greater peace and happiness, right? But as a species, we sort of congratulate ourselves on this technological capacity that we have. If you ask most humans, what's intelligence, they would tend to define it in terms of this human capacity. However that's expressed, but it's the basically having to do with this computational capacity, this capacity for um, conceptual thought. Right? Okay. Again, nothing wrong with conceptual thought. It can be used very constructively. Um, but what we're talking about here is conceptual thought to the extent that um, our fundamental existence is ignored, right? So even though we might define ourselves as, well, clearly the most intelligent species on the planet, but we're defining it from a very human-centric point of view, namely what we humans think is intelligent, namely this ability to think conceptually and science and computational skills. That's what intelligence is, and we're intelligent, right? Then it raises the question, yeah, but what about war and poisoning our rivers and streams and oceans and contaminating our food supply and building nuclear weapons? How is that a result of this greater intelligence? How intelligent is that really if the result, at least partially, but very significantly, is um, a threat to the survival of ourselves and most of the rest of the species on the planet? How intelligent is that? So if rather than applying this human-centric definition of intelligence, I mean, if we were to ask other species um, to define what intelligence was, they wouldn't say that. They wouldn't say that the current activity of humans is intelligent. I mean, if it's threatening the survival of themselves and most species on the planet, that's uh, the open question anyway, right? So I'd like to suggest another definition of intelligence, and that would be the capacity to function efficiently and sustainably in a way that's of benefit to the entirety of the ecosystem. Right? So from that definition, humans aren't very intelligent. Right? We can't argue that somehow humans are beneficial to the sustainable ecosystem as a whole, sustaining that. One might even place humans at the bottom of the list of intelligence. That other species are functioning in a way that is efficient and in harmony with their environment in a sustainable kind of way, of a net benefit to the ecosystem, right? So from that, it sort of depends on how we define intelligence. Um, so from like a broader perspective, we can look at other species. I mean, let's take a tree which has the capacity, or any plant which has the capacity to convert minerals and sunlight and carbon dioxide into oxygen, which all of us animals depend on. to breathe, in terms of acting efficiently, sustainably, and of net benefit to the ecosystem. I'd put trees up there pretty high, right? So we've all watched enough nature shows to understand, that different species have, sort of wondrous ways of relating to the world. I mean, fish can extract oxygen from the water. Um, you know, if fungi can um, interact with the roots of plants and um, bring minerals to the plant and receive sugar and supply to nourish them. I mean, working out that symbiosis. There's many, many examples of bacteria in our intestines, doing what they need to do to stay alive, but in return are providing us with immune molecules and um, neurological chemicals that we need for the health of the body. So there's many um, life forms that are functioning in this way, and we can say, well, it's not all fun and games out there. I mean, nearly all species survive by eating other species or recently deceased other species, and this is true. I mean, this is just the nature of this particular existence. Um, but there is a balance to it. There is a harmony to it, and it's not. I mean, there are some natural fluctuations depending on habitat and weather, etc. But there's not a. It doesn't seem to be a drive from any other species except humans towards its own destruction. So there is this capacity of other life forms that, if we look at it from a different definition of intelligence, that there is intelligence functioning there. It's not functioning conceptually, and it doesn't appear to be functioning as a knowing self-reflection of itself. A tree appears, at least, to just be itself, be an expression of itself, an intelligent expression in life, able to turn its leaves and to face the sun. So there's an intelligence functioning there. It's just not how humans define intelligence. It's not, when we look at the deer in the field, doesn't appear that they're sort of, contemplating, conceptual choices. Should I run away? Should I stay? How fast is this human approaching? It's all just done, watching, alert, conscious. And then at some moment they may decide, oh, it's not a problem, or maybe it is a problem, and run away. But there's not a like thought, mental, analytical process weighing the odds, etc. It's just like, yeah, okay, time to run. So there is this natural intelligence. Right? Okay, so it can be. We can see that this intelligence moves, and we can dismiss it as saying, well, it's just how a tree is. I mean, it's just sort of instinctual. It's not really intelligent. But that instinctual movement in harmony, in complete harmony with its surroundings, without the clutter of all the self-doubt and judgment, and did I do it right, and is this tree taller than me, and all of the mental things that humans go through. There's a clarity there. There's a harmony there, right? And it's not This greater intelligence that we're talking about is not a top-down thing. It's not like, well, it's not like let's say, the Chinese government that try to manage everything economically by, you know, pulling the strings. Life isn't you know, a divine source, and everything else is just the puppets, the puppeteer and the puppets. It's not that. It's that the entire creation is a manifestation, is an expression of the one formless, um, creative source. This is an expression. It's not separate from, it's not a creation apart from the creator. It's any more than you can separate the dancer from the dance, right? It is all one expression. There's not two things happening. There's the creative force, and then there's the creation. You sort of can't have one without the other, and therefore, this that we are privileged to experience is an expression of source, right? So sometimes we can hear the sort of the argument about evolution versus creationism, right? Which is a silly argument, actually, because when we view this dynamic um, evolution expression of creativity through scientific materialism, in other words, everything is just the material world um, that we live in, and exists apart from us. From that perspective, things look like evolution, trial and error, and this works out and that doesn't, and therefore evolution progresses in sort of a somewhat mechanical kind of way. And the argument against that is, of course, creationism, which is no, it's divinely um, prescribed, right? Divinely stored that there be a giraffe, um, and which is more what it looks like when viewed from awareness. That there is this infusion of a deeper intelligence functioning through this creation, as this creation, and therefore, when viewed from awareness, it still has the perfume of source. So it's just two different ways that are each has some relative truth, but neither are um, the whole picture. So if we can see that this manifestation is the intelligent um, expression of this creativity that is constantly moving, constantly changing, and we get to both observe it and participate in it. Wonderful. And when we can see that for what it truly is, have respect for it, have appreciation for it, gratitude for it, wonder of it, then perhaps we can, as a species, learn to live in harmony with um, all of the other expressions from that same source, rather than our current fascination with our mental and computational abilities, to the exclusion of our understanding of being an interdependent part of this one expression that we can call life.